What's up, lifelong learners? It's your boy Mr. Hang, and today we're going to learn how to do some basic editing in Lightroom. Okay, so from the last video you've seen that you downloaded these two practice files. One of them was overexposed and the other one was underexposed. So I'm going to walk you through how to edit these to correct these images that were shot a little bit off. All right, and so I'm going to start with the overexposed image. If you can see here, the white is a bit too white and there's like some lack of detail that's missing in the sky and this area right here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on develop. So you go from library module to develop module, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read the histogram, and the histogram is kind of telling me you got too much white. Okay, how do you read this histogram? On the far right is saying the data is, there's a lot of data that's white. And then on the far left over here, if you see this left side that has more information, it would be like this mound would be on the left over here. It means it's too dark. So I'm gonna just show you real quick. See, if I make the picture dark, you see how the histogram moves everything, move all the data set to the left side. And that's why you learn, all that basic graphing, right? Like those little dots, and you got the graph and X's and stuff. Yeah, that's why you have to learn all that in elementary school. And if the picture's too white or too bright or overexposed, you see the picture is white, you see all the data set move to the right side. And then they're all, the shades of gray in between, all right? So I'm gonna double click on this to reset the exposure. Now, that was the first thing, is to understand how to read the histogram. The next thing is I wanna show you how to show clipping. So on the left over here, this is going to be anything that is too dark, so meaning underexposed. So I click on this, and you're not going to see it in this picture, but if I go down to the left over here, double click on that, you'll be able to see, oh, I guess not. If something is too dark, I guess this is not too dark. If anything is too dark, you should be able to see these blue lights here, or blue color tones here. That is telling you, that part's too dark. That is crushing the blacks, is what we say in the industry. Okay, so what you do is you double click on that exposure, and then this one does not have any clipping of black. Now, if I go to the left over here to the picture that's overexposed, when I click on this right there, you can see the red dots pop up. So again, if I click on that, the red dots go away. If I click on this, the red dots pop up. It's telling me those parts are overexposed, so be careful. Now let me show you, let me just go extreme here. All right, this means a lot of stuff is just like straight up white. Like if I turn it off, see, it's just white. That means like, whoa, that's way overexposed. Okay, so that is how you read the histogram and how you turn on the clipping for the blacks on the left and the whites or highlights and shadows. So these areas right here, going back to the histogram, this is black, this is white, this is kind of like in the shadows, this is in the highlights, and this is everything that's kind of like, it's good. Okay, it's good. Like if I pull this over, all right, there's a lot of good data here. There's still some whites here. That's like too light. That's why you see these little red colors. All right, so now the next thing I want to show you is the color temperature. It's going down from the histogram, and I go down here. You can ignore all this stuff for now. That's for the advanced class. You are going to be able to set the temperature to very blue. Now, let me just turn off the clipping. Actually, let me just do proper exposure here. All right, you can I'll turn off the clipping. You can turn an image very blue by dragging the color temperature to the left, or turn things very orange, and you can drag the color temperature to the right. Now, the whole goal of color temperature is to make sure blacks are true blacks and white are true white. So black is perfectly black and white is perfectly white. That is what you use color temperature for, to fix your image. If something's too orange, you want to fix it, drag it to the blue side. If you think that you shot the picture, it was too blue, drag the color temperature to the right side, and then you'll get like a little bit more orange. So it's balancing the two. All right, now the next thing here is tint. Drag to the left, you get a green tint. Drag to the right, you get magenta. Okay, again, tint, I'm gonna double click on this to reset. Tint is just helping you fix the image again, right? If your picture in the light area, it's too magenta, then you slide over to the left to give it some green to balance out that magenta cast. And then if it's like slightly green, then you shift it over towards the magenta side. So that is basically what you do to correct white balance. This WB stands for white balance. All right. So that's enough about white balance, color, temperature, and tint. The next thing I want to talk about here is the exposure slider. And you saw me doing that. If I double click this, I feel like this is a bit too bright. So I'm bring it down a little bit because I want some of that sky, and I want this to be a little darker, and I want some more information here because there was some lack in detail in this area right here. So double click. See, there's some lacking of detail here, but when I pull down the exposure to make things globally everything darker, you can pull in some more details from those highlights that were like kind of too bright. Okay, so that is how you mess with exposure or correct exposure. To the left, darker. Drag it to the right, brighter. Okay. Now contrast just means like you're creating really hard lines. Like let me zoom in right here. See this line right there? When I do less contrast, the lines become softer. So if you're trying to not show a lot of pores and stuff in someone's face, slide the contrast to the left a little bit. Okay? And if you're like, hey, I want it to look gritty and I want the lines to be more defined. So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna drag the contrast to the right, and you can see everything just gets more like defined, like this line right here, right? Like all these textures and stuff, they pop out more. So let me just double click and then readjust everything, and I'll click on this again. Let me show you. When I take the contrast away, see how things got softer, right? There's less detail. But when I drag the contrast to the right, you're adding a whole lot of grit and detail. You can see that, right? Okay, so that is what contrast does. It actually messes with the pixels around places that has like a lot of contrast to create lines to be sharper lines and stuff like that. And then we have these things called highlights. The highlights are right here, okay? If I look at the histogram, I could tell there's actually clipping here in the highlights. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag the highlight down just a little bit where the highlight is just kind of kissing the highlight end over here. Okay, and you can see a little bit of the light go a little bit less light, right? Like the bright part go a little bit less bright. So let me just drag over all the way to the left. You can see this a slight smidge of fixing here. Okay, so if you're like some parts are too much highlight, you can fix that. And also if you turn on clipping, see these red parts? Watch, I'm gonna fix them by dragging down the highlights. See how those highlights went away? All right, so there is, it was subtle, but it's there. Like let me just drag it. You can see it's subtle, but it's there. Okay, so that is highlights. Anything that is like bright, that is called highlights. Next thing is shadows. Let me just bring this one in instead. All right. So again, let's mess with the highlights. If I want to bring it up, I get the highlights a little lighter. If I want to bring it down, I get the highlights a little darker. But this one has a lot more shadows, especially like right here. Okay, this is a shadow for sure. Right here is a shadow for sure. Okay, and this part right here, that's my shadow cast on this rock. That's a shadow. All right, let me just go back over here and show you how this shadow part works. If you bring it to the left, you make the shadows darker. If you slide the shadow to the right, you bring up the shadow a little bit. See that? Okay, let me double click here. Reset. All right, see, there's a dark shadow. Bring it up to the right, lighter shadow. Bring it down to the left, darker shadow. Okay, and then whites. Okay, whites are like, let me go back to the overexposed. Whites are here. If I bring the whites up, you're gonna see a lot of things clip. Okay. Oh, I guess it didn't. I guess I have to bring the highlight up. Or maybe I turned off the clipping. Oh, there it goes. All right. I turned off the clipping. See? If I bring it to the left, I bring down some clipping. See the red? Bring it down a little bit. Double click. I brought some more clipping back in. Drag it to the right. You bring a lot of white in. So let me just show you. Left, bringing down the white. Right, bringing in a lot more white. And you can see the histogram is constantly adjusting when I adjust these things. All right, and then blacks, obviously this right here, my pants, they're not black, but they're, you know, they're like kind of like dark gray. but let me just bring it down so you can see, and you can see all the histogram is going to shift towards the left because I'm bringing everything down to black. This gray now actually kind of looks black, but how does that affect my overall image? Everything's like kind of way too dark. If I bring it to the right, I bring the blacks down up a little bit. Let me double click here. See, this is actually black. This my camera bag, this is actually black. I'll bring it up. See, my pants is dark, and you see the histogram sliding to the right as well. Double click, drag it again, watch the histogram. I'm going to bring the blacks up and open up the shadows a little bit more as well when you bring up the blacks. Let me show you right here. Okay, double click, the shadows. There's some black in there, and it brings it up as well. All right. So that is your basic editing. So if I wanted to adjust this picture, to make it look proper, I can read this. It's kind of like you being a doctor, and you can read the histogram. You know this is underexposed just from reading the histogram, because in the middle is supposed to be good, but there's a lot on the left, and there's nothing, almost nothing to the right. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, hey, I want this picture a little bit overall brighter. Okay, and then I'm going to, just make the whites kiss the highlights like right there, the whites being white. And then the shadows, I dig the shadows. I just feel like this part right here is just too bright. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to adjust the highlights because I want more detail. See that? I got more detail out of this. Let me double click on that again. All right, I'm bringing down bringing down the highlights, and I brought in more details right there. So that is my picture that I actually like, that I feel like I've corrected the underexposure to be properly exposed. Okay, and then I might as well go into the next part right here where I show the before and after. So to be able to show the before and after, what you do here is you click right here where it says YY. Click on that, and then you can do a before and after on the left and on the right. Okay, the before is on the left. See how it's underexposed, and then the after is on the right where it's properly exposed. Or you can also do before and after split. Okay, this is the left side of the picture. This is the right side of the picture. I don't really like that. Or you can do a top and bottom. Before on top, after on the bottom. Or you can do a split again, top and bottom like this. All right, underexposure on the top, which is the before, properly exposure on the bottom, which is the after. But I personally just really prefer the left and the right like that. That's just what I prefer. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do Command-Shift-3 to screenshot. Command-Shift-3. So I took a screenshot, which is down here. I'll click on that. All right, and then I'm going to click on Done right here. And then this is going to show up on my desktop. This is where you would take it to Google Drive, go to Photos and Video 1.2, Lightroom Classic, or Camera Basics and Lightroom Classic is what I meant to say, because I wanted you to actually rename this to Camera, wrong one again, Camera Basics and Lightroom Classic. Drag your screenshot from today, drop it in there. You're going to right click, get shareable link. Make sure this one says anyone with link can view. Copy that link, take it to Canvas, and submit. That is you learning how to do some basic editing and showing me the before and after screenshot of your editing, and then submit it to me. All right? Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for coming to class. Thank you for learning if you're absent, because you're watching this because you're absent. All right? I'm going to say goodbye now with rock, paper, peace. Let's hang out again in the next video. And it is late. I got to go to sleep. Your boy's old.